Hi, I'm Caliban, and today we're going to do something a little bit different and take a look at Supremacy, which is the 20th and final of the bar's single-player challenges / scenarios. So if you play Beyond All Reason and you like the single-player stuff and you've wondered how to crack this particular nut, hopefully this video can help. Now, I'm making this video for a few reasons. The first one is mostly that all the other videos on YouTube are pretty old and they mostly consist of a single replay. The scenario has changed over time, things work a bit differently now than they used to. I'm not sure if it's on purpose or just a byproduct of other changes, but that's how it is. Also, there's a lot of variables in this scenario, so watching a single replay might not be enough to get you through. So what I'm going to do is show you a method to win. I don't know if it's the best method, it's just one that I've found works for me and I've had some success with. So let's just crack on. So we'll start at normal speed and just take a look. So the first thing I'm going to do is obviously resurrect this construction bot because we need that. Now, one thing to remember is you don't have to heal things after they resurrect. So as soon as they become alive, you can just give new orders to the Lazarus and pretty much everything will heal over time. Now, we need to get rid of these three buildings here, and I'll tell you for why. The enemy spawns with these ships here, dispersers, which are radar and drone ships. Now, what will often happen, or almost always happen, is this thing comes over here, or one of these does. It might be this one, it might be one over here, and it will get here, and it will get just within sight range of these buildings. It will send over a load of flying drones that will kill them, and then those flying drones will have vision and spot your Lazaruses and kill them too, and it will all end horribly. So what we're going to do is we're going to reclaim both these solar collectors and then self-destruct this energy converter. In the meantime, our construction bot is going to go and build a metal storage. Now, the reason we do this is our ally, who is also reclaiming and repairing things, is an idiot. Sometimes it will just reclaim stuff it should have resurrected and you'll get a massive load of metal come in and it will overflow. So I like to get a metal storage out first just to make sure nothing gets wasted. It also helps later on. Because you've got no commander and you've got no mexes or anything, it's nice to have a bit of extra storage. So our first thing our Lazarus is going to do is resurrect the other three Lazaruses on the field. And then we're going to run back and we're going to resurrect 7 solar collectors. Now we need 7 because each Lazarus needs 75 energy a second, I think, when it's resurrecting something. And then we need a little bit left over. So if we resurrect 7 solar collectors, it means that even if our ally, who remember is an idiot, doesn't bother to reclaim their solar collectors and instead decides to get their bot lab and keepers and or overseers and stuff up first, then we won't have a trouble. But just like before, what we're going to do is we're going to resurrect it to 5% health, then we're going to move on to the next one and it will slowly repair over time. I mean, very slowly. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they slowly repair over time, but we'll worry about that later. Our construction bot's going to get a metal extractor up and then a bot lab. We will run out of metal before this finishes. So after we've got 7 or 8 solar collectors up, what we're going to do is reclaim the rest. But we are going to resurrect them first, because if you resurrect them first and then reclaim them, you get more. So I think it works out as 60%. Look at these, you'll get 222 metal for reclaiming this. However, if you resurrect it and then reclaiming, you'll get 370. So as long as you're not in a massive time pressure, always worth to resurrect first, then reclaim. So it looks like I went for 8 this time. Don't know why, just did. This first part of the game, you don't have to be pixel perfect. You've just got to hit a few key points, and as long as you do that, you'll be fine. You can't affect anything down here at the moment. Sometimes your ally will just do something terminally stupid and you'll lose the game because of it. There's nothing you can do about that, but at least you'll know within the first few minutes. So our aim here is to resurrect and reclaim the things that we want to resurrect and reclaim, because the enemy will attack us at about 8.5 minutes. Now, this normally consists of a tank and a Shiva that will either come from over here or maybe from round here. Mostly the Shiva comes from this direction. Occasionally it walks down here and then comes up. But we need to be able to kill that. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got all of these things resurrected. Although, down here, I don't really bother with. It's too close to the range of all the flagships and other things that can shoot, so I don't really bother with any of this, but I normally resurrect this first so I can reclaim it straight away. That gives me loads and loads of metal so I can get an advanced bot lab up and stuff like that, because Although these are 1800 if you reclaim them now, if you resurrect them first and then reclaim them, that's 3000 metal, and that's really good. What I normally do though is leave this pitbull up cloaked and get the sneaky Pete's up. Now what I'm going to do is build twilights here and here. Sometimes I also build one here, depends how timing goes. The reason I use twilights rather than normal mexes is because sometimes, not always, but sometimes they'll last a lot longer, maybe 20 minutes or something like that into the game. Now, if you're getting 1.5 metal a second for a minute, that's 90 metal. If that's 20 minutes, that's going to be 1800 metal. So definitely worth it. Well, mostly worth it. Occasionally they'll just walk into it and they'll die straight away, but normally they stay alive for quite some time. After I've got a bot lab up, I get 2 more construction bots out, and then I get 4 more Lazarus, and then I get the construction bots to start building the advanced bot lab, and my extra Lazaruses go and start working on the fusion reactor while these ones are doing everything else. With this construction bot, I start getting a chainsaw up, because sometimes you have to deal with a lot of planes, and it's the best tool for the job. Got great range, great damage, so that goes up first. Again, down here, nothing you can do. Looks like my ally is doing okay on this run through. It's got plenty of solar up. Got a bot lab up. Chucked out 1 million construction bots. Seems to be reclaiming this overseer, which is interesting. But it's resurrected a couple of them. So we'll just see what it does. But it doesn't matter if it overflows too much on metal, because we do have a metal storage. So hopefully we'll get that metal. Now, let's fast forward a bit so you don't all get bored, as this is just going to be resurrecting things and get an Amex up. And then the next interesting thing comes about this time in the game. So, we're about 8.5 minutes in now. So, by this point in the game, for things to be good, you want to have your solars up, you want to have your cloakable fusion reactor up. You also want to get a sneaky Pete up, because that means that even when everything here dies, that will stay alive. And you want to get these keepers up. And after the Amex is up, I normally build a couple of pit balls to help defend this area, because I normally sacrifice this for resources after a time. I also get 1 ghost out immediately after the first advanced construction bot. You'll see why in a minute. Essentially, it's just to stun this first Shiva when it comes in. If you don't stun it, it will retreat after taking damage, and then later on you'll have to fight 2 of them, which is annoying. Whereas if you can stun and kill the first one, that's helpful, and you can reclaim the 900 odd metal that it costs. Often this Shiva comes straight and attacks about 8 minutes 20, but this one walked down the bottom and then came back up the top. Just for some reason, it does that sometimes. At 9 minutes, we're going to get our first reinforcement wave, which will spawn here, which will make killing this Shiva very easy. So I run the ghost in. Hit Control D to self-destruct. That'll stun it so it won't try and run away, and then we can quickly pick it off using these units here. Now at this time, also what you get is a single console down the bottom. Now in the way I play this scenario, this is basically everything. So what I do first with my console is I get a construction vehicle up, because I'm going to relocate my entire base down here. The reason for that is I need to defend this. If this dies, I lose the game. Now, I don't want to have to defend all of this and all of this. So what instead I'm going to do is build a fort here. So basically in like a area here is going to be my area of defense. Everything is going to go in this area, and I'm going to focus on that, and that means I won't have to worry about looking into 2 places at once. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build these 2 pit balls up, and then I'm slowly going to start expanding my base down here while sacrificing everything up here for resources. So I'll start basically reclaiming everything I can. I'm going to eat this Shiva wreckage, and I'm going to eat all of these defenses and this keeper, and then live in this tiny bit here until about 18 minutes in. Then I'll get some more reinforcements, and then I'm going to reclaim them too, and then all this, and I'll have hopefully nothing left. So after getting a construction vehicle out, what I like to do next is get a long-range jamming tower, because if the enemies see you, they come and kill you. Well, they come and kill you anyway, but they come and kill you a lot harder if they see you. And also they shoot you with their flagships. And I'm also going to get a chainsaw out, because as we said earlier, planes are a thing and chainsaws are awesome. And then what I'm going to do is going to get some Lazaruses up, and I'm just going to start building up here. I'm going to reclaim all of these advanced solars for extra resources. I'm going to destroy all of these energy converters, because they are basically they're just liability because the enemy will bomb them and everything around them will die, and we don't want that. And we're going to get an advanced bot lab up because we really need a T2 construction bot so we can build pulsars because we will be attacked by juggernauts. And we also want a decoy commander. The idea is we're going to capture most of these construction bots, then we're going to reclaim all of their production facilities, and that completely stops your ally from being able to do anything, which is good. Because at the moment what your ally will do is it will spend resources on creating units that run outside of radar jamming range and then bring the wrath of the enemy down on it, and we don't want that. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to take away all of your allies' build power, we're going to trade them a lot of the production equipment like energy generation and metal production, and then it's going to overflow from them to you. What that means is they get the same 50% bonus for being on brutal difficulty as the enemies get. So you'll actually be getting the 50% bonus for brutal. This is a huge advantage to you. You won't be getting it off everything, but it makes a big difference and goes a long way to even the gap. So there's not much to talk about for the next few minutes really, so we're just going to ignore up here, nothing really happens, and down here we're going to build up. So I'm just going to fast forward a bit just so you can sort of see how it unloads. This is another key thing to remember, getting a hardened metal and a hardened energy storage up. Because we're going to be using a lot of reclaiming to power everything and a lot of donated energy to power everything, we're going to need a lot of buffer. So without these, things go a bit funny. So we want to have a lot of buffer. And now we've started capturing things with our decoy commander. Now, if you try to capture buildings, your ally will self-destruct them before the capture completes. But if you've got 2 decoy commanders, you can actually complete the capture before the self-destruct goes through. So I normally get a second decoy commander out later, but first I'm going to crank out 10 butlers because butlers are great for assisting the construction bot. I'm not going to use construction turrets because they don't really have the range to reach everything I want, and also they take up more space. Butlers are very small and we're really going to struggle for space here because flagships can hit out to about something like this. So we want the core of our most important stuff beyond that line so we don't get shot by flagships. Even though we can build overseers and keepers which repel the flagship attacks, by an hour into the game they can have anything up to 60 flagships and no amount of keepers is going to stop that. So we want to be out of their range rather than using shields. Although we do still have a few up, and we will still keep a few up because there's still going to be some stuff we want to repel, and occasionally one will get close enough for a volley or two. But we're not going to rely on them for a protection. Generally, we're just going to rely on staying inside radar jamming range. So while this is happening, there is an annoying Shiva shooting things. There's not much you can do about this. You have to just hope your ally goes and sorts it out. But I'm going to now start getting my main defences up. So I'm going to start building some pulsars. You will get attacked by juggernauts later. Pulsars are essential. I like to get 2 or 3 up early to repel these earlier attacks. And that should pretty much do the job. So up here, in a minute, we're going to start reclaiming anything. But normally wait till I get the first reinforcement wave. And if we look at me at the moment, you see I've got a couple of thousand metal, that's fine. And we can got lots of stuff we can reclaim around here when we need more metal. I am going to reclaim these energy converters. I know you don't get anything back from them, but it means they're not going to blow up and it's not going to kill my radar jammers or anything around it. So I'm just going to reclaim these. And I'm going to build another chainsaw, and I'll probably build one somewhere here in a minute and probably a second one here and here, because sometimes they send a lot of planes and planes give vision. You don't want the enemy to have vision. If they've got vision, they'll come and attack you with lots of stuff, and flagships will shoot you. So lots of chainsaws, lots of range, get rid of the aircraft early. So now we've just hit 16 minutes, which is the enemy's second reinforcement wave. So they get another Shiva and a few bits up here, which you can easily handle. And also they get another same things here, which hopefully you'll be able to handle because we get our own reinforcement wave in a couple of minutes. So let's just fast forward through to that. So you'll notice that I'm going to get 3 pinpointers up because this dramatically increases the accuracy of stuff shooting at radar range. If you don't have these, you won't do enough damage. And also there's these cloakable but not stealthy crawling bombs that they deploy. If you don't have these, the pulsars will often miss them and they'll go and blow you up. You don't want that, that's bad. We're going to have to build some economy, so now we're protected a bit. We won't have juggernauts for a while, but we're protected from the other stuff, so we're going to get our first APHIS up. I only generally build 2 in this mission. We'll explain a bit more about that later. But now we've got our second and final reinforcement wave. So once that spawns, what we immediately do is run that to our base. Here's those planes we talked about. Thankfully our chainsaw is going to make them run away. And I've already reclaimed the keeper and the pitbull and stuff here. And now we're going to just keep reclaiming. Anything that's there we're going to reclaim. First of all, we're going to get rid of these ambassadors. I normally keep the Razorbacks a little bit longer just in case I get attacked and need help. But generally I'm just going to reclaim everything I can up here and use all of the resources to build this base. Because now I've got 2 decoy commanders, 3 captured turrets, 10 butlers and 7 captured construction bots. I've got a decent amount of build power. So I'm going to sink that all into this base. At some point soon I will have to deal with an early juggernaut probably, so I'm going to make sure I've got at least 6 or 7 pulsars up so I can deal with that. So you can do what you want with these. I normally capture a couple because it's sometimes useful. The juggernauts have got 3 attacks, right? They've got their big beam cannon, their big shooty plasma cannon and their missile. Can't do anything about the missile. Your keepers will stop the shooty plasma cannon, but the beam cannon will still be a problem. So what I like to do is have maybe capture a couple of these, leave them just forward of my base, and that means if you do get an early juggernaut, you have a little bit of extra DPS to help kill it, and also it will normally beam cannon them rather than beam cannon the pulsar. Because if it beam cannons the pulsars and then gets close enough and they get caught in a bit of the self-destruct range, it can kill everything, and you don't want that. But we're going to keep cracking on. We're going to build our APHIS. We're going to get chainsaws up, get more pulsars up. It really depends. The speed of this really depends on how lucky you are with metal placement. Now, it's worth noting that the enemy gets 2 scout planes that fly on a patrol route. So I'll show you them here. This is one of them. You can see its patrol route here. And this is the other one. That's its patrol route. If we switch to the enemy vision, you'll see that they have got a very long line of sight. They get line of sight all the way up to here and line of sight all the way around here. So sort of anywhere outside here they can get vision on you. This can make it quite hard to reclaim stuff with your Lazarus. So often it's until you can kill these, it's often you've got to sacrifice a Lazarus or maybe nip out quickly, get a bit of reclaim and then nip back. But yeah, just be careful of these people patrolling planes. They're very annoying. So by this time in the top left, almost everything's been reclaimed. We're just doing the last Razorback now. And as we press on, we'll get that. We'll reclaim anything round. And then we'll start doing the Keeper. We'll get the construction bots. I've set up a little thing to get all the cannons and get that all done. And then we're safe. Now what I've done up here is I've traded the cloakable fusion reactor to my ally. That means rather than generating 1,000 energy, it is instead generating 1,500 energy. And then that's being transferred back to me, which I can handle due to the energy storage, giving me enough buffer. So I've also built Sneaky Pete next to it. Now, this often keeps it safe for a long time. I've had this thing survive for like an hour before it gets blown up. So that Sneaky Pete's well worth it. And then this is pretty much done now. I often leave this to die because the longer it's alive, the better. Sometimes I'll reclaim it if I can see a big load of enemies coming. I should have reclaimed this chainsaw. I didn't. That's just me being bad, but you should do that. So we've got our APHIS up and we've got 6 advanced energy converters up. Now we've only traded 3 of them to our ally because you can't control when they go on and off when they're not yours. If you trade them all to your ally, he'll use them and have no energy overflow for you, and then you'll run out of energy when you're trying to fire your pulsars, which is bad. So I generally only trade 3 to my ally, and then later on when I get a second APHIS, I'll trade the other 3, and then if I get an extra fusion reactor, maybe I'll do another 1 or 2, but don't trade them all because you're going to run into power problems. So now we've got lots of pulsars, we can deal with anything that's coming. And we're going to start cranking out some dragons using the fact that we've got these construction bots, we can build the core stuff. Now, the reason we're going to get dragons is because they're about the only thing that we can use. The damage the flagships do at this point in the game is just absolutely ridiculous and unmanageable. I mean, they build flagships at quite a high rate. They also get like 2 flagships every 20 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that as a bonus. So if we look, we're only 27 minutes in the game and the enemy's already got 12 flagships. So there's nothing you can build on land in enough time that's going to be able to combat that. And that's just the flagships. I mean, they've got battleships and other things too. So we like dragons because dragons are immune to that. Flagships do have anti-air, but it's not very good. So the dragons can have a bit more reign to do things. They've also got enough health that it means that when you get attacked by juggernauts, your dragons can help with some DPS and they won't get one shot by the juggernaut's big laser and they won't die to 1 or even 2 juggernauts explosions. So dragons are your pretty much mainstay for most of this game. We've also built an advanced bot lab, cranked out a couple of advanced construction bots, and now we're going to reclaim that. That means we can get a second APHIS up. You're limited to 1 APHIS of each type per player, and as we want to trade them to our teammate, we want to build 1 arm one and trade it, and then 1 core one and trade it. And that way we can sort of muddle with the limits. We're also going to get a backup radar jammer and a backup radio tower because, like I said, you never want to be outside of jamming range. That's really problematic. So now we're about 30 minutes into the game and we should be in this sort of position. So our base in the top left is completely gone. We don't have to worry about that anymore. We've forgotten about it, although our fusion reactor will last some time. The enemy are cranking up their production now. They've got like 947 metal a second now. That's really problematic. If you think of it, that means they could technically crank out 2 juggernauts a minute, which is far too much for you to deal with. So what we need to do now is we need to start hitting their production and making sure they don't get too crazy. Because after a while, the barbarian will decide, hey, I've got enough production, let's sink everything into units. They're already getting juggernauts out. Now, if we can get that level down, then we only have to worry about 1 or 2 juggernauts on each attack every few minutes. If we don't deal with that, we're going to be dealing with 2, 3, 4 juggernauts at a time, and there's just not enough room down here to build enough pulsars to deal with that. You know, you'll kill 2, maybe 3 if you've got a load of dragons as well, but after that, if there's 4, you've got no hope. You're just going to die. Sometimes what they'll do is build juggernauts and get them stuck somewhere, and then that will get unstuck later and they'll attack you with 10 juggernauts at once and you'll die anyway. That's not your fault. That's just the game. It can happen. You'll lose sometimes and it's not your fault. But, you know, play this a few times and you should be all right. What I like to do is use my dragons to spread out a bit and start trying to kill these scout units that we spoke about earlier. That way our Lazaruses have got a little bit more room for manoeuvre and have an easier time resurrecting. So as we said before, getting out the advanced energy converters, and we're getting the second APHIS up and we're cranking out dragons. So let's just fast forward a little bit more. Now, the next stage of winning is going to be doing a bit of damage to their economy and dealing with their anti-nukes. So we're allowed to build 1 core and 1 arm nuke on this scenario, and we're going to do that because it's the only way we can reach out and touch in a really good way without taking a lot of damage. So, and also hit stuff that's underwater as well. Now, there is anti-nukes up. There's 1 here, which spawns in about 20 minutes into the game. Maybe it's 16 minutes into the game. There's also 6 mobile anti-nukes. Now, 4 of them are stationary. There's 1 in the top right, and then another matching 1 in the bottom left. And then there's 1 in the left middle, and there's 1 in the right middle. These are always in the same place. And then you've got 2 more, 1 here and 1 here. These ones are on a patrol route. Sometimes these get moved around a bit. They get stuck and they end up getting wedged in a load of stuff in the center. You might have to send out some sonar planes to find them, but generally you don't need to deal with them all at once. Our first mission is going to go and try and do some economic damage and get rid of an anti-nuke. because if you can get rid of one, if for instance if this one dies, there's a little sliver of space here you can land a nuke, and this map is deceptively small, and if you land one core nuke here, that's going to wipe out everything here. So we want to do that, and it's the pretty much same in the bottom left. You'll notice that the other anti-nukes only reach out to here and here. So if you can just take out this anti-nuke down here, then you can land a nuke here and kill all of this stuff, and that's going to be very good for you. So now I've got 4 dragons. I'm going to do my first attack. On this playthrough, it doesn't go too well because they don't always build up so much anti-air here, but they've built a lot, and that's problematic for me, and it means these dragons aren't going to be that effective, but they do enough, but just not as much as I'd like. Although I'm also a little bit impatient. I'll tell you for why. It's half an hour in. You're on the clock here. If you don't start hurting their economy and slowing them down, then they're going to just steamroll at some point, and they'll be attacking you with like so many juggernauts that you'll just have no hope of defending against it. So rather than try and build like 50 pulsars and defend against that many juggernauts, which I've tried and I just can't get to work, instead what I'm doing is I'm hitting them early. So just over half an hour in, I want to start making my mark. So they're already on 1.1k metal a second. I'm on 115. That's not a good matchup. But we'll show you what goes on here. So I fly my dragons over and they do quite a bit of damage. And then the main thing is they kill all of these naval energy converters. That's going to definitely hurt the economy of the enemy quite a bit. Now they are getting shot down, but I will manage to kill the anti-nuke and also these energy converters. And then they'll die. That's a shame. I didn't want them to die. But if you look, that's actually done quite a lot of damage. I mean, it's going up now because they're doing a bit of reclaiming. But it went from something like 1.1k a second, and it's settling down to about 770 metal a second. So I've knocked a good sort of 250 up to 300 metal a second off their income from that one attack. So that's going to really help me. And now what I'm going to do is exactly the same thing in the bottom left. I'm going to fast forward this a bit because that's a bit boring. Just waiting for that to happen. I'm not really doing much else. Although we will start to see juggernauts now. Sometimes you'll get more juggernauts. I mean, this is the first one 33 minutes in. Sometimes you'll get them at 27 minutes. As long as you've got 6 or 7 pulsars and a couple of units or a couple of dragons, you can deal with a single juggernaut before it gets too close. But later on in the game, you'll need more than that because you will get 2 or 3 at a time. And that's if things are going well. So I can see the juggernauts coming, so I'm going to try and soften it up with these first. And then it will blow up, which is very good for me. Because these things, I mean, they've taken a lot of damage, but they've survived and I can repair them for free. And now I've got 17,400 metal sitting in a pile right next to my base. This is essentially how I'm going to fund half of my economy. The enemy's going to use its money to build juggernauts. The juggernauts are going to walk to my base. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to reclaim them. I'm going to use that to kill the enemy. And I'm already getting my first nuke launcher up now. So let's crack on with speed a little bit and we'll see what happens. Let's go a bit faster. I don't want you just to watch nothing happening. Now I do start to move out here, but I get a bit rattled by the fact I can hear another juggernaut walking around and I can see a lot of radar blips. So I think I hold these back in case I'm worried about dealing with this juggernaut. But then I change my mind when it goes away, then it comes back and I change my mind. But in the end I decide to just go for it, I think, and leave my pulsars to deal with it. It took quite a bit of damage there, so now I'm not worried about it. I know, I am worried, I come back. No, they're scary, but it's dead and that's another load of metal on the floor. Although there is another one coming, but I'm pretty sure I can deal with that. So let's check out these dragons. So I'm going to fly along the bottom here, avoiding as much of the AA as possible. Then I'm going to take out as much of these naval energy converters. So you can see the enemies work their way back up to 1k a second. We need to slow that down. So I'm going to kill this anti-nuke as a priority. And then I'm going to kill as many of these advanced naval converters as I can. And then I'm going to bring my dragons around as they've still got a decent amount of health. And I'm going to look for the anti-nukes. Luckily that one's in a good position, and I know this one's here because it's fixed, so I'm going to move over to that one and kill that too. So now I've got rid of all the anti-nuke protection on this side of the map. I've decided to try and get them home, but I think they will get shot down. In the meantime, we killed another Juggernaut, which is great. That's more metal. What I tend to do is just send 5 Lazaruses out, and then I build another 5, leave them there, and then I've always got 5 when I need them. And we send out our first nuke, which smacks down here, and as you see, pretty much wipes out that whole base. So if you think the difference, the enemy was cranking up to 1.1k a second metal. After that attack, it's going up a bit because I think they're doing some reclaiming. But now that's done. So I've effectively halved their income. This is great because this means that rather than having to fight loads and loads and loads of Juggernauts, I'm going to get a small stream that I can easily deal with and reclaim the metal. And I'm just going to carry on nuking. I've built one of each nuke thing now. And what I'm going to be doing is just essentially just keep trying to nuke as much as economy as possible. I don't quite know where everything is. It's hard to scout because there's so much anti-air, so a few of my nukes will be a bit rubbish. But I'm just going to keep nuking their economy down till I get it down to a manageable level. And I'm still going to be building dragons with all these dead Juggernaut remains, and I'll be using the dragons to do extra damage. So let's speed this up a little bit because we're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. I do send the dragons back in because they didn't get too far here, and I want to kill the extra anti-nuke stuff, but I didn't send enough dragons and they got shot down. That was me being rubbish. I should have waited for a few more and then killed the anti-air. But I do have more nukes coming out. This one I know roughly where the edge is, so kill a load of stuff there. That means my dragons can get through without taking quite so much AA fire. And then I'm just going to keep dealing with these Juggernauts and other odds and ends that are coming while continually nuking. Is that one going to die? No. Oh, that's stupid. I should have killed that. Yeah. Oh, okay, well it died. That's fine. So now I'm going to keep cranking out dragons. Dragons are expensive, but with all of these dead Juggernaut wrecks, it's not actually that difficult to keep up. Plus, I am pulling in 130 or something a second just off these energy converters, so it's not too bad. At this point, I've traded all of these ones. And some of these ones, probably. No, not these, but all of these ones are now on my ally. And I've also built an anti-nuke. Don't forget that. One of the enemies will build a nuke at some point in the game, and they will nuke your tiny base. So build one of these after half an hour, and then you'll be fine. And now I'm just going to keep nuking stuff and sending dragons in to try and do as much cleanup as possible. I can't kill all the units, but I can do quite a lot of damage, and I want to hit this anti-nuke and these 2 anti-nukes, and then that gives me pretty much free reign to do what I want. Here's a couple of Juggernauts coming in. I've sent my dragons in to help because it's quite a scary amount of Juggernauts. They will do some damage, but their big cannon is stopped by the keepers, and as long as you kill them a little bit out, they'll do a bit of damage to your pulsars, but they've got quite a bit of health and they won't die. If they get like this close and die, yeah, that's bad news. You don't want that to happen. You need them to die here and here, but not here. That's bad. So we're going to keep throwing nukes over. Don't even know what that was aimed at. I just thought there might be some stuff there. Really I needed to scout this and nuke this a bit quicker, but you know, you can't always do it right. There's a couple of Juggernauts just standing here. This sometimes happens. I don't know why. Sometimes they attack you, sometimes they stand there. Sometimes they don't. Who knows? As long as we get a decent enough supply of them, then that's fine. The only time you need to get worried is if you don't get any Juggernauts sent at you, because what it probably means is that you're going to send nothing for 40 minutes and then 8 at once and you'll die. But that shouldn't happen too often. So now I'm going to start being a bit more careful with my dragons because I want to build up quite a large number so I can start fighting some of this stuff. But I am going to send them on frequent attacks to try and kill as many of their constructors as I can, and just essentially just do enough damage. Make sure they don't build loads more energy converters, and that means I can focus my nukes on more important stuff. Let's just crank through this next bit. I do like to keep some dragons back at base in case I suddenly get a lot more juggernauts than I can handle, and then I'll attack them a bit further out so that I can weaken them a bit before they come close. So normally I sort of operate two groups of dragons. One will be at base repairing and one will be out fighting. I've built a load of construction turrets here earlier just to keep everything repaired up. Note the fact they're not close enough to this on purpose because I want them repairing. But, you know, I've got like, what's that, 10 butlers, 7 bots, and basically anything I've got my hands on or left over is all helping build these. At this point I've got 13 pulsers up, which is enough to deal with two juggernauts. And with a few dragons you could deal with 3. Any more than that I don't bother. I mean, I just can't really fit them in, there's not enough space. But I am building a few more different planes now. I'm getting some condors up just so I can try and scout and find where the things I need to nuke are. Obviously the radar and the dragon won't spot stuff underwater. So to find all these naval fusion reactors I need to use the odd condor. They're also good if you can't find the anti-nukes as well. I mean, they die pretty quick, but they accomplish their mission. I get to see what's there, and then I can just start dumping nukes down on it. So if you remember earlier, the enemy was creeping up to something like 1.1k metal a second. By this point, I've kept them at like 400 metal a second. Now, that's obviously quite a lot, but it's just a lot more manageable, and that's between all 4 of their players. So if we look, one of them's on 184, one's on 380. So they can't crank out juggernauts too quick, and also I've killed a lot of their build power, so actually a lot of their metal is just stacked up on maximum at the moment as well anyway. Roberts isn't, and he's got a lot of build power doing juggernauts here. These are the ones that are attacking my base mostly. These ones, well, I mean, they're taking forever to complete. And I'm just nuking any build power that appears around them. Now I've got a big old clump of dragons, so now I can start putting in some big hurt on anything on the surface. So what I'm going to be doing is trying to take out any anti-air stuff, take down their constructors, basically just clear as much as possible. Probably going to not going to tackle this big mess in the middle head on. That's just too much to deal with. I might skirt around the edge a bit, but yeah, we're not going to mess with that. Now that we've got their economy under control, what we're essentially going to do is just start nuking the units down. So now we've got a lot of their surface stuff down over here. What I'm actually doing is I've stopped building dragons for a little bit, and instead I'm cranking out torpedo bombers on a fight attack pattern up the top here. What they're going to do is just help me deal with all these underwater structures like the metal extractors and the energy storage and stuff I can't really deal with. They'll die, but they're cheap, and I've got plenty of energy, so I'm just going to crank that out. And then what I'm going to do once my dragons are repaired is they're going to fly up here and make sure they kill any anti-airships. And then that's about it for the rest of the mission. It's basically going to consist of me nuking everything, nuking all of the economy, nuking the flagships. Not going to kill them with nukes, but maybe just take a third or 2/3 of their health off, and that way I can finish them with dragons. So we're not going to fight these head on yet with the dragons. There's still too many. We're going to just keep nuking them until they're all quite wounded, and then we'll just go in and clean them up. Just like that. And then we're going to do the same here, and then we're just going to clear up anything we can find. And then after that, you've just got to find the enemy's constructors, which can take a while because they've got them air, land and sea. But once you've taken all these flagships out and you've got dragons, it's pretty easy. I just flood the whole thing with torpedo bombers. After a while, they'll kill everything in the sea that you can't kill with the dragons. And then I'll keep using nukes to take out the enemy. I mean, oh, they've actually built a nuke here. Look, oh, they're nuking me. That's fine. We built an anti-nuke. We're good. And now we can clear all that up. So we moved all our torpedo bombers down the bottom. They're just going to go through. They're not very good, but they'll just get the job done if we build enough of them. And we'll just keep cranking out more. I've built a second aircraft plant. Now I'm not going to attack much. I don't need so much repairs, so I'm using these construction turrets to get cormorants out. Nuking all these flagships as much as possible. They'll kill the torpedo bombers, but hey, I'll build more. And now after all those nukes, these flagships are quite low, so I'm going to move in with my dragons and just finish everything up. And once the last of the flagships is done, that's pretty much it over. All it is now is just a bit of clean up. So the dragons are going to take these out, then the dragons are just going to spread out and kill anything that gets built on the surface, clean up the remnants of this top left bit, and then after a while the torpedo bombers will manage to find all the remaining construction ships and sink them. And then I'll normally build a few cormorants so I can get a bit of radar coverage so I can find any leftover constructors, and that means I can win the game a little bit quicker. Looks like the last constructor is just flying right over here, so we killed that. Is there any more constructors? Oh, I think factories count too. So there we go, factory's dead, and that's it. So that's how you can tackle Supremacy on Brutal. If everything goes fine, you'll be starting to hit the enemy's economy about 30 minutes in, and within an hour and a half, you should have everything dead, and you should stay alive. Well, good luck. Hope you get on all right with it. And if you enjoyed this video, then please click the like button. If you've got any comments or questions about this scenario, then pop them down in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this sort of thing, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you back soon.